Two things I learned in life. You can't control what people say about you, and you can't control what they think about you.
Well,
so what that means is that you're going to have to get comfortable with everybody not liking you.
all right.
I don't care how good of a preacher I may think I am. I don't care how good of a man or a woman you may think you are. I don't care how hard you try to be that good person. Everyone is just not going to like you.
Amen.
And what you have to accept is that everybody's not going to give you a pat on the back every time you elevate or do something good in your life. Everybody is not going to give you a hand clap or tell you good job. So some people are going to fall by the wayside the higher you go.
Come on.
So we see that Jesus, he didn't take all 12 with him. He realized that he had to leave some people behind. He had to understand, and he understood that everyone is not going to be ready for what he was about to do or could not handle what was about to happen. So now that we got all the preliminaries out the way, the background out the way, I just have one question for you all. Are you ready to fly?
All right. All right.
Are you ready to fly on Northbound Airlines? Some of y'all don't sound like y'all ready to fly, but it's okay. Because once we get in the air, we can't turn around. Once we get up there, we can't come down. Here in Jacksonville, there's a lot of tall buildings around. Mostly in downtown Jacksonville. Some people may call them skyscrapers. If you are standing at ground level and you look up, you will see that these buildings are very tall. If you ever boarded a plane, you realize that the higher you go in the plane, the smaller those buildings seem to be appear. What I'm trying to tell you is that the higher you go with God in altitude, the smaller those problems you was dealing with are going to get smaller. The higher you go with God in altitude, the smaller those people that you've been dealing with are now going to be small with you.
All right.
There are some procedures and that the airlines and that the pilots that they have in place that we could use in the church. When you get about 5,000 feet in the air, the wheels go up. If you, depending on where you're sitting on the plane, if you listen real good, or wherever you're sitting, you can feel that the wheels are getting ready to go up in the compartment. Normally when you get about 5,000 feet in the air. What happens then is that the pilot, he communicates to a person that is sitting in the tower. And what he does is that once it gets 5,000 feet in the air, not all the time, because sometimes he may keep it down depending on the weather, depending on if they need to make an emergency landing, depending on if they need to make a U-turn, but the pilot communicates one word to the person in the tower. And that one word that he says to that person in the tower is committed.
Yes, sir.
What that means is that we are high enough and we are far enough that we are committed for takeoff. Northbound, what I'm trying to tell you is that in order for us to go higher with God, we're going to need some people and some members that's going to be committed to this ministry. If I may use a few brothers as an example, and I hope they don't mind me calling their names, but brothers like Brother Hodge and Brother Coleman and Brother Best and Brother Durham, I want to commend those brothers, especially Brother Best, because on last Sunday we had men's training. And we went around the room and we asked the brothers, what is it that you want to do? And those brothers stepped up and majority of them said, you know what, I want to learn how to lead the Lord's Supper. But for me, for Brother Best mentioned that he's been in the church his whole life and never led the Lord's Supper. And it was because he had this stage fright he mentioned. So then we threw a question to the brothers and we said, well, why are you here? Why did you decide that you want to do the work for Northbound? Brother Best said because he wanted to be committed to the work of the church. And so it made me think that I wonder how far we can go if we had commitment from everybody here at Northbound. I wonder how far we can go if more people stepped up and just simply asked, how can I help, versus the same people doing the same work. Now, when I say being committed to Northbound, you don't have to necessarily be in the forefront serving people, but you can be in the background. I make this phrase, and a lot of times it's in a joking manner, but I always say, thank you for your ministry. It's not because I'm thanking you for your church ministry, but I'm thanking you for whatever it is that you have done.
Amen.
See, your ministry can be simply somebody driving on the side of the road and you see that they need help and you pull over and you help them. That's your ministry to that person. When I say committed to Northbound, I'm not even talking about monetary wise as far as you being committed to the Northbound, but how can you contribute your works to the church? In order for us to be committed, I believe the first thing that we have to do is that we have to change the way we think. And what we have to understand, church, is that what got us here may not get us to where we're trying to go. So let me just make it plain. If you still want to travel by a horse and buggy, you're not going to make it. Horse and buggy was the transportation before automobiles was in place. And I'm really trying to be nice with this.
Keep it real.
No, you ain't gonna get me in trouble. Keep it real. Come on. If you want to travel from the north side, let's just say to Bed Meadows, a horse and buggy is not your way to go. Because what would turn into a 30-minute ride is probably going to turn into some hours ride. If you are still stuck in your old ways, come on, whatever that may be, but at the same time saying you are northbound and you ready to elevate, and when we get ready to move, you kind of want to step to the side and say, hold on, I don't think I'm ready for this. Just follow me, and don't follow me. Please follow me. We're talking about commitment. Taylor and Brown, I would consider them as my friends. More like brothers, more like big brothers to me. Yes, sir. I go to them, for advice. We talk maybe at least once a day, once every other day or whatever. I'm not what's called a fair weather friend. Y'all know what a fair weather friend is? Fair weather friend is somebody who say they got your back, who say they're there for you, but then when they get hot in the kitchen and you turn around, they know where to be found. Those who say they have your back, that means whatever it is you're going through, I'm here for you. Does that mean we agree on everything? No. Because I can tell you we don't agree on everything. But we know that when it comes down to it, you look at them wrong, we got 6 cousins that's going to come for you. Some of y'all will get that later. As Bone Crusher said, we ain't never scared. Sister Brown called us thug preachers. Everybody won't be able to fly with us because everybody is not ready for our departure. I'm ready now, Brown. See, when you get ready to fly, you have what's called a departure time, which means you have a certain time you have to get to the airport, get through baggage claim, get through TSW or whatever they call it, and TSA, there you go, and get on the plane. I'll tell you, I ain't never flown but once.
Come on, Coach. Board.
When we get ready to move northbound, there's going to be some, as I mentioned, that's not going to be ready for our departure time. And that's fine. That's why they give you certain times for you to get to the airport and depart. But if I had to give you an example, I will probably go to the book of Judges, Brother Brown, chapter 7. And the verse is number 3. And to give you some background, there was a person named Gideon. And Jesus had a work for him. But he realized that the work or what it is he was getting ready to do for these people, they was not going to be ready. Brother Brown, what does verse 3 says?
Make a public announcement.
Attention all passengers. You have now aborted Northbound Airlines. We ask that you sit back, buckle your seatbelt, because this is going to be a ride of your life. Before we take off, we have some special announcements we need to make to you. Brown, read.
Anyone afraid?
If any of you are afraid to take this flight with Northbound, before we take off, this probably be the best time for you to get off. Now, depending on who you are, you probably were saying, well, are you saying if I don't agree with what's going on in Northbound, I should leave? No. What I'm simply saying is that I have a theme for myself this year. And that theme is either you grow or you go.
That's right. Come on.
Now, when I say grow, I'm not saying you have to agree with what's going on here at Northbound. The type of growing I'm talking about is a spiritual maturity growth. You know, the golden rule we all learned in Bible study: do unto others as you want them to do unto you. That was elementary. Maybe we got to middle school, we learned Matthew 18:15. If you have an ought with your brother, you should go to him. High school, love your enemies, love your brother. All of that. We know what it is that we should be doing. Brown, what else you say?
Anyone who has any qualms at all may leave Mount Gilead now and go home.
God knew what Gideon was about to do. We're going to get ready to read in chapter 7 what God and Gideon decided to do and what was the end result. Everybody is not ready for what we're about to do. Let me just pause right here. I don't care what anybody say. I believe we have the best combination of preachers in the church. Amen. And I'm not saying that because it's me. I'm saying it because, at least in Jacksonville, you're not going to go to any other church that have 3 ministers that can minister and make sure that everyone is covered. Yep. What I mean by that, I have my age group of youth who I can relate to. Brother Brown has his group who he can relate to. Brother Taylor has his group who he can relate to. Most churches you go to, you just have that one minister. And we wonder why the church is not growing, because you have that certain group who are not being touched.
Come on. Right.
So true.
Brown, what did verse 7 say?
God said to Gideon,
This is God talking to Gideon. Go ahead.
I'll use the 300 men who lapped at the stream to save you, and give Midian unto your hands. All the rest may go home.
Now, if you know anything about this story, Gideon had 10,000 and 22 with him. I believe somewhere between verses 3 and 7, it says that 22 fell off. Once God said, if you're afraid, this is your time to go off. 22 fell off. You still had about 10,000 left, if I'm not mistaken. God then tells Gideon, look, you still got some people that's not ready for what you're about to do. So now those 10,000 people fell off, and at the end, Gideon had 300. What am I saying? This is what I'm saying. God knew enough to let Gideon know all these people you have are not for you. Taylor, everybody who say they have your back, they ain't got your back. Everybody say they're northbound, it's truly not northbound. But I got enough sense to know, and this might sound crazy coming from a preacher, but I'd rather have 300 people who I know that got my back that's going to roll with me, that's ready to learn, versus these 10,000 people who always got something to say. I'm going to use myself for an example. I put a simple post on Facebook. Simple post. And that post said, we condemn women from working in the worship service. Let me back up. Church of Christ has so many rules to where we find loopholes to work around those rules.
Well,
we say women can't work in the worship service, but yet we allow the women to get together on the latest day. And those ladies do the same thing, the same exact thing on a Saturday at latest day that we tell them they can't do on a Sunday. That was one post I made. Second post I made is, I wonder how did we get to having service on a Sunday? Simple question. Simple question. It was about 3 or 4 of you all in here. Inbox me. Do you believe in the Bible? That right there shows me that the work that we want to get ready for at Northbound, you're not ready. For whatever reason in the church, if a Church of Christ member asks a question, then we're questioning God. But if a denomination person asks that same question, we either ready to condemn them or we're ready to sit down and have a Bible study. So why is it that we can't come together and investigate the word to actually see what it is that God is trying to say to us? I've learned on my own that, prime example, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 29. That is a scripture that we use for communion. Growing up, that's what I was taught. For I received of the Lord, which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. When he had given thanks, he prayed and said, take it, this is my body. We learned that that's a communion scripture. But did we ever go to the top at verse number 1 and read what the Lord said about women working in the church? I'm just a firm believer that if it wasn't a problem, I leave that alone, because I done lost some of y'all, and let's hit a U-turn with this flight here.
Light in there now. Go.
So we ask questions only because we want to know. But we also get condemned and talked about for asking these very same questions. I don't get me wrong, there's a way that you can handle stuff. But why is it that we have to be judged based on what we ask? You ever wonder why your flight seems to run smooth and you get to your destination without any hurt, harm, or danger, besides the grace of God? Well, it's because that the people on the flight have respect for the pilot.
All right.
That is the pilot who is in control. You see, the pilot, he is treated special because he is the one who is responsible for watching over you and making sure that you get to your destination without any hurt, harm, or danger.
Man.
It doesn't mean that the pilot is any better than you. It just means that he is different, and he is the most important person on the flight. The airline knows in order for everyone to have a successful flight, you have to have proper respect for the pilot. The pilot knows things that you may not know. He may understand that the pilot knows what is out in front of you and what's on the side of you. Because if he's sitting in the cockpit, that pilot can see that a storm is coming before you know anything about a storm is coming. That's because when he's sitting in that cockpit, he has vision in front of him, and he have those other pilots on the side of him that's watching.
Yes, sir.
Unlike the passengers, when you're sitting in the plane, all you have is that side view.
Yep.
So by the time that storm gets to where you see it, it had already done passed. I don't think y'all getting this.
We in.
One thing we can learn from the denomination is that those people have love for their pastors,
Yeah, they do.
for their bishops, prophetess, their prophet, their deaconess, the building grounds manager, the stewardess, the board of directors. They protect their people. But then we come to the Church of Christ. And the preacher say something that not even necessarily that goes against what we've been taught, but it just challenged our thinking. And then all of a sudden, we want to gather the troops together and have a meeting with everybody but the preacher. Denomination, those preachers, they get in trouble, they get caught up, get sent to jail, whatever the issue may be. Those people get that brother. Come here, Brother Taylor. Come here, Brother Taylor. Those people get them, hug them. We got your back, bro. Don't worry about it. Now, no, that's denomination. Church of Christ.
Caesar. A2, fruit check.
Brother, go to Applebee's. You got a drink menu on the table. He ain't order no drink.
Right.
The drink menu just on the table. See, Brother Taylor, I wonder if he's going to order something. Brother Taylor, get to the church. Family, we are standing before you because we are needing to announce the resignation of Brother Elisha Taylor. Y'all missed that. Y'all know it's true because y'all laughing. Denomination has so much love for their preacher. You're not going to talk about their pastor and get away with it. You're not going to throw in the stones at their pastor and get away with it. You're not going to mistreat his family. You're not even going to look at them wrong and get away with it. I work in the funeral service, and I'm at maybe 2 churches at least a week. And when I say the love that these people have for their leaders, I don't care if it's nothing else we don't learn from them. We can learn how to love our leaders. When it comes to this work at Northbound, I don't care who it is. I don't care what they say. I don't care what relationship you have with Brother Taylor, Brother Brown. Somebody say something about them, you need to be the first one to stick up for them. You may not agree what it is that they may be doing. You may not agree with the sermon that they are preaching, but because that God put them to lead you, you need to have their back. Brother Taylor, I don't know if you remember this. When you first came to West Side, me and you talked, I told you I wanted to get into youth ministry. One thing that you told me, and you said that an older preacher told you this, is that this work as a minister can be very cutthroat.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be times where you're going to be feeling lonely.
Yeah.
It's going to be times where you're going to feel as if you're doing something good, only to find out that not the people on the outside, but your very own people have an issue with what it is you're doing. And everybody in the church knows what that issue is, but Brother Taylor. The pilot of this flight is Sir Elisha Taylor Jr. Sir. That's his new name, Brown, sir. He is the one that is leading this flight. And what we have to do, church, we have to first get behind him. Now, I do want to say this. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to agree with the man. As I told you before, us three, we don't agree with some things. But he needs to know that he got somebody that has his back. His family needs to know that we have their back. The last thing he needs is distraction from that passenger that's sitting in the back. I don't fly much. I know Sister Hales, you fly, seems like every day. Sister Hales in Africa today, Israel tomorrow. But I'm sure when you go on your flight, the last thing you want is that parent with that child that's kicking your seat. That one person who's always complaining because the peanut's not salty enough. That one pilot or that one passenger who's complaining because they don't have enough leg or whatever. The last thing Brother Taylor needs is that nagging passenger or that nagging member in the back who's not contributing to the work. I've come to find out that those who are always complaining probably be the ones who are not even doing anything.
Well, it ain't doing anything.
Brother Brown. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 12 and 13. It's one thing to voice your concern. I mean, we all have concerns, don't get me wrong. But it's another thing to complain about every single thing. And then the bad thing about it is that we don't go to the source. We don't go to the person who said it. We go to everybody else to find out how they feel about it, so that I know if I do go to them, I got a few people that's going to go with me. Brown, verse 12.
And now, friends, we ask you to honor those leaders who work so hard for you.
To be in this position, in a leadership position, it's hard work. The team is to make the work easier for the leader. As a leader in the church, the leader shouldn't have to come in here and worry about if the air is on or not. I'm talking about commitment. Continue, Brown.
Who have been given the responsibility of urging and guiding you along in your obedience.
Everybody is not selected to be in a leadership position. But you have to have trust in God that He has put forth the right men